All right, let's just jump right into it. When you think of a Gemini, what comes to mind? Probably the life of the party, right? Super chatty, quick-witted, and yeah, maybe a little flaky. But what if I told you that's just scratching the surface? We're about to peel back the layers on one of the most misunderstood signs in the zodiac, and we're going to go from that social butterfly persona all the way down to the deep core mystery that really drives them.
You know, this line from Alice in Wonderland, it just perfectly captures that Gemini feeling, doesn't it? One minute they're right there, totally dazzling you, and the next, poof, they vanished into thin air. But here's the thing, that changeability, that vanishing act, it's not just some random quirk. It's actually the central clue to solving the entire Gemini puzzle.
Okay, so let's start with the Gemini everyone thinks they know, the ultimate social chameleon. This is that first layer, the public-facing persona that's so charming and so adaptable. But it's also where that famous Gemini duality really starts to show.
So yeah, these are the classics. Geminis are kind of like the butterflies of the zodiac, always flitting from one person to the next, one topic to another. They're ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, so of course they're verbal wizards. They just soak up information and can charm you with a quick mind and an even quicker tongue. Honestly, they're masters of disguise, able to blend into literally any social situation.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This is that duality in action. Every single one of Gemini's greatest strengths has a shadow side. That amazing gift for witty conversation, well, it can easily become kind of glib, even manipulative. That mind that learns so fast, it can come across as superficial, never sticking with one thing long enough to get real depth. And that famous adaptability? To some people, it can look a lot like being flaky or, let's be honest, two-face.
So how in the world do you get past that social mask and connect with the real Gemini? Well, let me tell you, you can forget the grand romantic gestures. If you really want to capture a Gemini's attention, you've got to be ready to play a little intellectual chess.
This is it. This is the absolute golden rule. For a Gemini, true intimacy, true connection, it isn't built on candlelit dinners, nope. It's forged in the fire of a late-night debate. They need to feel that mental spark, that incredible feeling of meeting an intellectual equal. For them, friendship and camaraderie are the bedrock of any real romance. So, you want to woo a Gemini? Here's the playbook. You've got to challenge their opinions, ask them a million questions, and please do not be afraid to debate. This back and forth, this intellectual sparring, that's their love language. And, that mental agility totally extends to the bedroom. Things like dirty talk and role-playing are often a huge turn-on. You just have to feed their mind and support their endless curiosity. That is the key.
And there is no better real-world example of this Gemini duality than the ultimate icon of the 20th century. Her story just makes this whole idea of a public versus a private self crystal clear.
And for a very good reason. Linda Goodman, who was one of the most famous astrologers ever, she pointed to Monroe as the absolute quintessential Gemini. She totally got that what the world saw was only one half of a much, much more complex picture. And this right here just illustrates the shape-shifting perfectly. On one side, you have Marilyn Monroe, the bubbly, charming public persona. But behind that carefully built facade was Norma Jean, a really complex, intelligent, and deeply private person. A Gemini can present one thing to the entire world while being a million different things on the inside. Okay, so we've looked at the social mask, we've looked at the private self, but now we're going to the very heart of the Gemini paradox. To really understand this sign, we have to go all the way back to an ancient myth and this profound, often unconscious feeling of loss. The symbol for Gemini is the twins, right? It's based on the Greek myth of Castor and Pollux. They were totally inseparable. But there was a catch. One was mortal, and the other was divine. And when Castor, the mortal twin, was killed in battle, his brother Pollux was absolutely heartbroken, just left completely alone with this horribly severed connection to his other half. The astrologer Brian Clark puts it so perfectly. This ancient myth, it speaks to a core wound for Gemini. This deep, ancient memory of being whole, and then the trauma of being split apart. It creates this constant sense of looking for something or someone that's missing. And this is where myth just crashes into modern science in the most mind-blowing way. This isn't just a story. Vanishing twin syndrome is a real biological thing. A lot of pregnancies actually start as twins, but one is absorbed really early on, leaving the survivor with this deep, unconscious, and totally unexplainable feeling of loss for their entire lives. And get this,
While only about 1 in 60 births are twins, scientists now think that as many as 1 in every 6 conceptions starts as a twin pregnancy. That is a staggering number. It means this primal, unconscious search for a missing other half might be way more common than any of us ever imagined.
So what does this all mean? It means everything we label as a Gemini flaw gets completely turned on its head. That famous restlessness, it's not shallowness, it's a frantic search. The flightiness, that's not inconsistency, it's a lifelong quest to find that missing piece, to finally feel whole again.
So it really leaves you with a pretty profound question, doesn't it? When you start to see their constant movement, not as a flaw, but as this desperate search for connection, well, it changes everything. It kind of makes you wonder, what lengths would you go to find the part of you that's missing?